Also on the table, the show has provided some specialized Sharpies that say Next Fall on them, so grab them while they're still there. They're a great souvenir. There's also some flyers about the show. While I'm up here yakking away, it's a perfect time to double check your cell phones, pagers, beepers, etc. Make sure they're turned off so we're not interrupted during the program. We do ask if you want to take photos during the event, please turn off your flashes. It's just very distracting for our guests to have a lot of lights going off in their face. It's also troublesome to your fellow attendees. There is no product tonight. There's no script, unfortunately, yet. I'm sure that it will be published, but it hasn't been as of yet. However, after the conversation on stage, the show has kindly provided us with playbills, and the cast will be sitting at the signing table, and anyone who would like to get a playbill signed by the cast and say hello to them, you're welcome to come over. Just for calmness sake, we start the line, we run it along this way, so we don't have people coming from every direction at the desk at once. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce our special host for the afternoon. He's a wonderful author in his own right. He's written really definitive career studies of Barbra Streisand, Frank Sinatra, and Doris Day. All the books are available in the store. I'll do that commercial for Tom. He also comes in every so often and does this wonderful hosting for us. He'll be bringing on the cast members. So I just want to say I saw the play Wednesday evening. I laughed through the first act. I cried through the second act. Great theater evening as far as I'm concerned. And I encourage you all to come and see the show. I think you'll want to if you hear what our guests have to say. So without further ado, here's Tom Santopietro.
Hi, thank you all for coming. I'm just going to quickly explain the format of what we're going to do, and then I want to bring out the actors, because that's the fun part of this. So I'm going to interview the cast members. We have 4 of the cast members here today for about a half an hour, and then we'll take questions for maybe 15 minutes, and then they'll sign the playbills. Just a quick show of hands, how many of you have seen the play? Oh, almost everybody. That's great. So we won't go into a lengthy description of the plot. I just want to bring out the actors right away, and we'll get started on this terrific cast and this terrific play. Cotter, Smith, Patrick, Heusinger, Connie, Ray, and Sean Dugan. The first thing, when I was doing a little bit of research online after having seen the play, I came across, I'm not sure if it's the show's official website, but this was the description of the play. So I thought you guys might want to elaborate. They said, a Christian gives an atheist the Heimlich and dislodges more than they bargained for. So who amongst you wants to elaborate on that a little bit?
I think that pretty much sums it up.
Well,
I have nothing to say.
Actually, I just thought that for a play that is so complex and has so many themes running through it, that sort of made me laugh, and I felt.
Well, it's sort of. I mean, we can comment a little bit on this. Part of the challenge of selling this play, of getting people to come in and see it, was how do you round up everything that we cover in a very short, in a line. You can say. Let me enter, a farce about, that takes place you get the idea. Rev, about Rothko and, his struggle between he and his assistant or whatever it is. And in ours, you just can't do that.
Just because this is a play with so many layers, and so I was thinking about, actually the first theme I wanted to talk about, and I think, Cotter, I'm actually going to start with you. We can maybe go down the line. It's just running throughout the play is this whole theme of family and what makes a family, and when Adam is told that only the family can see Luke as he's dying. And I just, if you can talk a bit about your character as the father of the dying boy and the concept of family.
I agree, the play is very much about But to me, it's really about how we have to, even beyond family, get beyond all of the things we disagree with each other, and hold on to the people we love, because this is all going to happen very quickly, this life. And it's going to be over before we know it. So the differences that we have that are separating us really need to be accepted, and we need to embrace the people we love. But the family in this particular case is divided because the father is a devout Christian who does not know that his son is gay until this accident where he then meets the lover. You've seen it, so you know, the lover of the son. And cannot accept the fact that his son is gay. Probably, I think, knows somewhere in his psyche, but is unable to accept that fact until it's too late. And at that point, I mean, for me, but I think also for people watching it, the fact that he realizes this when it's too late, and realizes that he actually didn't know who his son was, is a very important and sort of deeply moving way to sum up the problems we have, not only in families, but in the country. I mean, we have to get over it. I'm being very long-winded here, but...
Not long-winded, eloquent. And do you feel that until that moment, that big moment, is your character looked upon as the villain of the piece, to use shorthand?
Probably, yeah. I would think, the antagonist, anyway. And I think the brilliance of Geoffrey's writing is that at that moment, the man who is the antagonistic side cracks open, and you actually see him as a human being as well. And you understand his trouble and his sensitivity, and you can love him at that point, even given his psychology and his blocks. He's a human being.
Which is the great thing about Geoffrey's writing, is that
Right.
these are not cartoons. It's not black and white. It's gray the way it is for all adults. So, Sean, just if you could please just give everybody here sort of a capsule description of your character, and then I'll give you my question.
The guy with the least to say but the most on his mind, maybe, is how I would describe it.
That's good.
Maybe.
Who is a developer?
Yeah, he's a commercial real estate developer in New York.
Okay.
He moved from Washington, D.C., where Luke used to live.
Right.
They were friends, and Luke convinces Brandon to move up here with him when he decides to become an actor.
Okay.
And leave law school.
As a law school graduate, I would say that would be a smart decision. What fascinated me about your character is the fact that the character is gay, but draws the line at living together. Says choosing the lifestyle is wrong. There's so many contradictions in that. So I was hoping you could talk about that a little bit.
Well, I definitely don't think that Brandon would actually self-identify as gay.
Okay.
I mean, he kind of, in a way, reminds me of when I was in college, I read a quote from Gore Vidal, which I thought was really, at the time, it kind of didn't make any sense to me, and I sort of dismissed it, but was reminded of it during the rehearsal process, where he said, there are no homosexual and heterosexual people. There are homosexual and heterosexual acts that people do.
Okay.
And, I think that Brandon seems to be the character who's, in a way, the most politically incorrect in terms of, if there is such a thing, the gay movement. Geoffrey had a lot of negative responses from gay audience members in the beginning of this play. And some of it was directed at Brandon in terms of, his representing so much of a, regression and not a kind of, fully actualized person, because he has this dark side to him. But what I think is, on the total flip side of that, is beautiful about what Jeff did with that character is that I think it's good to remind ourselves, we who live in New York and, I certainly consider myself a pretty liberal guy, that there are people who still live like that, right? And who can separate sexuality from their life and the sex that they choose to have. And I think that it's a good reminder that kind of pressure or whatever it is that makes him live that way still exists.
Because here we are living in this separate country of the island of Manhattan compared to the rest of the United States. Yeah. Connie, I now want to ask you a little bit, I want you to do the same thing that Sean did, which is give a little capsule description of your character, the mother of the dying boy, and then I'll give you the question.
I think I am the dingbat mother who makes everything happen in the end, who is the most accepting and the most giving in the end.
The most accepting, the most giving actually is sort of a perfect segue into the question I wanted to ask you, which is sort of a thematic question running through the play, which is the whole concept of judgment and judging people. And there's the line when Adam says, "You people are all about judgment," and Luke says, "I don't judge anyone." And I'm just wondering, is your character judgmental?
I think of all the characters in the play, I am the least judgmental. I think I judge myself more harshly than anyone else. I think I'm very accepting of everyone else. I think, I'm the one who engineers peace in the end. I'm the one who engineers pulling the plug in the end. So I'm the one who says to Adam, "I know who you are, and it's okay." And he said goodbye to you, and he called your name at the end. So, judgment, I don't think she does that much.
And because you are the mother and Cotter's character is the father, but you are divorced in the play, just for 2 minutes talk about the difference in the attitudes of the two parents towards their son.
I believe I know that he's gay because I bought him a bike with little sparkly tassels and a wicker basket, because I have a friend named Spike who makes turbans with nuts and raisins on them, so I must bag hag myself. So I think I'm aware of his sexuality, but I must respect his need to stay hidden, because he doesn't want to come out, and if he doesn't want to come out, I'm not going to out him, and I'm certainly not going to out him to his dad. So we all play this charade, and I'm willing to play that charade to keep the peace. Like everybody's family plays a little charade.
Every family around the world.
Yes, on this island and not.
Oh, yeah, in this country of Manhattan and outside this country. Patrick, I want to ask you the same question. Talk a little bit about the character, and then we're going to sort of get into a big theme with you.
Okay, I've had all this time to come up with something that's not going to be good. I think that Luke is just he's somebody who marches through the world just trying to make everyone happy and keep everything happy all the time. I mean, literally, that's something that's on his mind. Like, he likes when things are easy. He likes it when everyone is happy, and puts that other people's the concerns of that in front of his own, to a fault.
How naive is your character?
Wow. He feigns naivete, doesn't he, through a lot of the play. He also is, though, through a lot of things. I mean, he doesn't get it the way that, there's that breakfast scene where Adam really is asking him all these questions about how he operates and how his mind works. And he himself doesn't really understand the atheist life on the other side, but has no judgment. So he is naive to that. He knows it exists, but has no interest in exploring it or getting that education. And also, the very first scene when you see the two of us together, in a way, I mean, he's got those first couple lines where he's talking about the fatty and all that stuff, and he's describing these people, and it says, he comes off as if he isn't intelligent, and then slowly you really even into the rapture scene where we're moving in. You see him, what about, Holly's asking him all those questions about what about these people, what about this, our Jewish friend, and what about that guy who doesn't know anything about religion, are they going to go to heaven too? And he makes that, Mongolian confusion. He doesn't understand that one means the other. But then right at the tail end of that scene is the first time you really see him, like his mind come to life, where he makes these very real arguments, that aren't naive, that are very developed, like, what's so wrong, really, is the way I believe about wanting to go to heaven. Like, just because you don't believe that, can't I want that for you? That was long-winded, but yeah.
No. So, therefore, your character, in terms of the religious issues, talk about the fact of he prays after sex.
Right.
An unusual, rather sort of show-stopping moment. But just about, what motivates him in that way, and is this his way of rationalizing to himself being gay?
Boy, the way. He's very similar to his mother in this freedom of judgment, that he has none on other people, but he has, like Brandon, figured out a way of operating his life that he can function and juggle these two things. That's what the play is about. Is as we know, is that Adam wants him to love him more than the other one, and Luke has it figured out that one is not different from the other. Love is exactly the same, whether it's for God, for Christ, for a human being, for your parents. And that particular thing, praying after sex for him, is one of the ways that he's negotiated the balance of being able to love Adam and God equally. I don't think that, I think that's pretty much it. I think you said it in the question almost, but I'm just elaborating.
No. There's no easy answer to that. It's one of the things that I think is so great about the writing. And it sort of leads into the next question I had, which I may go back to this side again. And it's sort of a group question, but Cotter or Sean, if you speak to it first, just a little bit more in terms of the religious aspects in the play. Because one of the things that I thought was great is that, again, it's not black and white. We were talking about that earlier. And the line that struck me, because I think there's real truth in it, is what Luke calls a predisposed disdain towards overly religious people. And I thought that's great, because that can be true. It gives another side to the issue. So if either of you could comment on that. You're up, Cotter.
I would go back to the judgmental. Obviously, the character that I played, the dad, is the most judgmental of all, and he's the most black and white character. And his journey is so extreme because he doesn't change until he's broken. The man has to crack open before he changes, which is, some people, that's what they have to do. So, what was the question?
Predisposed disdain.
Predisposed disdain. The other
Well,
side.
it's interesting that the Christian has so much predisposed disdain.
Right.
There's predisposed disdain galore in the world, obviously. But it's on both sides. And I think, and Geoffrey hasn't said this, I'm not speaking for him, but it seems to me that he chose two extremes with the completely atheistic and the very right-wing Christian purposely. That he wasn't doing a theological gray area. He was choosing two extreme camps to make a point that we all have to stop because there's too much predisposed disdain.
Connor brings up an interesting point about, I come from a pretty conservative Southern family, and who have no problem with judging. And and what it all comes down to whenever we're together, or what it used to, we've all pretty much made peace, except for my Uncle Jack, who really can't have a conversation without saying the word abortion. You know, we really have come to a place of respecting each other and loving each other. And I think that, you know, both in religion and politics, it seems particularly endemic to America that both sides now are so adept at vilifying the other side. You know, we recently had Elton John, one of our producers, sing at Rush Limbaugh's wedding. And people have asked, I mean, I don't know if you guys, we haven't really talked about it too much, but I've had many, many people, you know, with already a very set agenda of what they want the conversation to go like, say, how can you you know, rationalize Elton John going to Rush Limbaugh's wedding and singing and taking his money? And I mean, first of all, I think that when we can build bridges rather than burn them, I think that can always be potentially really great. And then I also think it's really great to take some of Rush Limbaugh's money and give it to Ambar or whatever Elton's choice of charity is that he's going to give it to.
And also for his fans to know that he invited a gay man to come sing at his wedding, like an openly gay man to sing at his
Right. I
wedding.
mean, you know, that's got to be upsetting to some of them. And I think that, you know, I don't really know what Rush Limbaugh said about gay people, but I don't really know that he is. I mean, I know that he's pretty conservative, and again, going back to Uncle Jack, who's Rush Limbaugh's his favorite guy. You know, I think that if we can create conversations between people who don't agree with each other, then the better off we'll be. Right now, we live in a time and in a place where conservatives can go to Fox News and be assured that they're correct in their point of view. Liberals can go to MSNBC and be assured that their point of view is correct. And as long as we're intent on our point of view being justified and given a pat on the back, that's going to still create tension and problems, I think.
You should say that to a couple of our politicians. That was very, very eloquent. Connie, I want to ask you another question about what you talked about your character being one that makes things happen, and sort of continuing on the theme of judgmental and people. There's that other. Well, I actually think I want to change this question a little bit. The certainty that to which Sean was referring on both sides. And Adam says to Luke, I would love that certainty. It's the thing I envy you for. So I want to ask you about that theme, but also your character. Does your character have certainty or not?
Absolutely not.
Right.
And which is why I need a pill bottle really bad. I mean, there's a hole in me that I cannot fill, and I'm desperately trying to. Adam says, I say, I'm one too. Does that surprise you? And he says, no, at least I think I am. I'm not sure anymore. Who knows anymore? I'm grasping. I think I'm always looking for something to fill up that hole. So I'm lost and trying to be found.
And yet at the end of the play, I feel your character is less lost than Cotter's character is.
I feel like when the play begins, I am the worst mother ever. I'm the absentee mother I blub. And through the course of the play, I can actually become a mom, and I do the motherly thing, and I look after him at the end. I understand the lay of the land. I get what's going on. I make sure that he is looked after in the end. And I look after everyone at the end. I'm making sure everybody's okay at the end. So I am a true mom by the end of the play.
Which gives a whole different take to the concept of family that runs through the play. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We make our own family. It doesn't have to be mom, dad, zygote. It can be whatever we want.
Also, something I'd like you to share with politicians in the country. I can see that as a campaign slogan. I think, Patrick, I wanted to, I think we have time for maybe one more question. I have to look here, and then we'll take maybe some questions from the audience. But, and actually any of the four of you can answer this, but I'm starting with Patrick. Talk a bit about the title of the play and what that means.
Next fall, there's a line that Luke says when we call it the de-gaying scene, when his father's about to arrive from JFK on a surprise visit, and he says to Adam, he goes, "Why?" Adam's goading him, tell him today's the day, and he says, I'll tell him, I promise, next fall when Ben's in college, because I figure by then, Ben is his brother, I figure by then he'll be, I can't even remember the line that I say it, I figure by then he'll be able to understand a little bit more, something to the effect of that. It's really odd, you do it on stage, you know it, and then you come talk out here and it's like paraphrasing, and he'll be able to decide for himself. I can do her lines too. Weird. But that's kind of what it is. You know, it's this reference to that there's all these things in our lives that we do away with, that we push aside, that we keep promising ourselves, our family, our friends that we're going to get to, and then we never do. And that particular theme follows it throughout the play, all the way to the last scene where we're sitting on the couch, and we've had that moment where he says, spoiler alert, I want you to love me more than him, in reference to Christ. And right after that, he says, so how's your brother now? He's a sophomore in college. And he's still, it's so weird, like I think about the moment and I get like emotional now. And he still hasn't said anything in that point in the play. That's what it's about.
It seems that Geoffrey's implying a potential wisdom in choosing to have it happen now, or choosing, so many people say, oh, I'll be happy when this happens, and they spend their lives not being happy, or I'll come out to my parents, next fall or at some other point, and they never do it. And I love that about the play, that it's a reminder that it's it. Cotter referred to it earlier about, life is short, and if you can choose to be happy in spite of circumstances now, and if you can choose to be honest with your family about who you are now, you just never know. You don't have to worry about the future.
And just going back to what I said earlier, that this father doesn't really understand who his son is until his son is gone. It's just a devastating loss. And we've all had this, but the comments we've had from many audience members have been really so moving for us. And I've had a number, but one in particular, a young gay man from the South came up to me and he said, I'm 35 years old and I'm gay and my father's a Christian very much like this, and I still have not been able to tell him. And I'm going to bring him to this play next week. I'm going to take him out to dinner and tell him after the play, because I think this will prepare him in the way I need him to be prepared. And that, again, is the genius of this play to me.
Well, I had another question, but I want to end there because you can't top that. I mean, that's great. I do want to take maybe 10 minutes for people that have questions, and we can ask the cast. Yeah, the gentleman right there.
Yes, I read in the paper yesterday that the show is closing after a week from Sunday. I was wondering whether this was taped for the library.
Yes.
It was last week.
Is it possible that it may get shown on PBS?
Ooh, I don't know about that.
We haven't been told anything about that, but I mean, anything's possible.
Yes, in the front row.
I love Broadway shows, and I'm so interested. I can't wait to see it. And the discussion.
Hurry up.
Is awesome. How did you come up with the idea, or how did the show come about?
I think Geoffrey always talked about the playwright. He's admitted in some interviews, and I'll speak for a little bit for him here. He's not here, but the interviews that when he's answered this question, he said he grew up, he's openly and publicly an atheist himself, and was always fascinated with religion. He never had a lot of understanding with it, and never really had a lot of exploration in his own life. And so he began to explore it, and began to explore relationships from friends and things around the world, and things that he knew. And thought it would be a beautiful investigation to have a play about the homosexual life with atheism and Christianity.
A question for you, actually. Every time I see the show, there's the scene where you go to Luke's apartment, and you make the comment about the picture. My question is, do you think your character says that to stop him from coming out to you?
Just to interject for a sec, Cotter, could you explain, just remind people about the picture and what the comment
The
is?
picture is from a production of a Huck Finn play that my son was in, and I comment on it at a certain point, asking if the African American happens to be a homosexual, but in a rather street language way. And I get a lot of this question, and the only way I can answer it is that denial is a really powerful thing. And I honestly believe, and I come from men like this, so I mean my dad was a little like this, that you can know something and not allow yourself to know it.
Okay.
I know this, my father, I always felt like if he actually admitted certain things that were going on in our family, he would crack, similar to the way this guy ends up cracking. So he could not allow it because it would end his life. We all deny things, marriages that aren't working. This is one. I mean, I believe he knows, but he will not allow himself to know.
He's not actively in that moment.
No,
being like,
I'm not manipulating.
You're about to tell me, don't tell me.
Not manipulating the moment.
Okay.
But his psychology leads him down that path.
These are good questions.
Could you talk about the moment in the play where your character and Adam's character have that very long moment of silence? Yes. Could you just talk about
I think we just mentioned it, we just touched on it before. The very last scene that Adam and Luke have in the play, it's the culmination of the 5 years of the relationship. They're nested, they're living together, they're so happy, and they have this beautiful and potentially hilarious, on any particular given night, like tickle fight. And in the middle of it, he looks to him, and Adam, the atheist, looks to Luke, the Christian, and says, "I want you to love me more than him." You're talking, after that, there's the pause.
I'm talking about the part where it looks like you're both praying, or I believe Adam.
Where he tries to find that.
Oh, wow, I'm sorry. Okay.
That's okay. Maybe
Okay, rewind. The scene prior to this, in the middle of the night, we touched on this maybe a little bit before. I think we were talking about where he said, Adam said, "I wish I could have that." He's in the middle of a crisis, of his own personal crisis. He thinks he has a brain tumor. He's incredibly hypochondriacal, and he's going through this madness. So I'm explaining for everybody else to understand. And I'm trying to convince him to say to him, "Please, I have safety." He's like, "I don't understand where you get this calm from, and what you get this, and that all lies with me in my faith." And the scene eventually culminates with a moment where I have found possibly the first time where I may be able to help him see, so to speak, to see the light, to maybe find his faith or Christ or whatever that is for him. And I convince him, because he loves me and I love him, to give it a shot. And he's vulnerable and I'm vulnerable, and that's what that pause is, and that's what that moment is. And in our storytelling, he takes this moment to try to understand, through all the explanations I've given him, from what it was, a white light, as he describes it, in the back of my dad's car when I was a kid, when I finally understood Christ and what it meant to Luke. And he can't, and he doesn't. He tries to give it his best shot, but it just still doesn't make sense to him. And that's what that moment is him really giving it his best shot.
I remember hearing Geoffrey, the playwright, describe it as Adam trying it on for size and doesn't quite fit.
much more brief.
I think one of the most interesting things about the show is neuroses and how he is a hypochondriac. How do you think that plays into the relationship between Adam and Luke?
I think, Patrick always describes this, I'm just stealing now lines from everybody else's questions, Q&As. Patrick always describes, he says that hypochondria, those attitudes that he has is his faith. And he describes it that in a way that they're these both passionate, people, and they both do believe in something. His, unfortunately, is his fear of death constantly. And you know what I mean? So there, I think that offers an interesting chemistry, is that these two people do have strong faith in something. And they both love each other. I don't think I'm answering your question, however, but I think I am at the same time. Let me know.
We have time for one more question. Yes, in the front row.
Why do you think the play is not doing very well? Do you think it's the homosexual subject?
It's a good question.
That actually is a very good question.
It's a question that's never occurred to us. It's a tough one. It's, the economy is the way it is. Theater-going habits have become what they've become. And, I think...
You mean the star-driven for straight plays?
Well, I don't know if you read any of the 2,000 articles that the New York Times published that you have to have a star in your play on Broadway. And this was kind of a test case to see if that really was true, to test the theory that you have to have a TV person or a movie person in your, very expensive to produce Broadway show. And unfortunately, although I think that we have faith collectively that it hasn't failed, Broadway audiences are driven to people that they either know from television or film. Because if you're in the middle of a recession and you spend $500 to take your family to see a show, are you going to go watch a bunch of people that you've never seen before, who you may not like, or are you going to go see Denzel Washington, who's kind of awesome, and you'll be in the same room with him?
I mean, we want to see that. You know what I mean? Seriously, Denzel, Pulitzer Prize-winning play, it makes sense.
But I think there's a huge amount of factors that have led to the play closing, which was inevitable anyway. It's just a matter of how long we got. And I think that it's important to remind anyone who's seen it or anyone who wants to see it, or unfortunately the people who won't get to see it, that over 160 performances in total, both preview and regular performances for a Broadway show, is not bad. It's actually a pretty decent run. And so I think that, it's encouraging in that way to know that it still can be done, but it's a lot harder now than it was before.
The most encouraging thing to me was that these producers were brave enough to do it. They knew they weren't going to make money. They knew that they could hire stars and make more money.
They told us they
told us they could do that. And they decided to keep the chemistry of this cast together to prove that you can produce an American play on Broadway with a group of American actors and that people will come. And they got a 4-month run, and it will have a future life around the country and wherever, and it will be published and produced. So, good for them. More producers should do that.
And a triumph on many, many levels, yeah. Well, we're going to end here because the cast is going to be signing playbills. Thank you all for coming, and if you haven't seen the play, go.
Thanks for coming. Oh, and on behalf of the other two cast members, they both have prior engagements. They couldn't make it today, but they wanted to be here very much.